Paper was like gold in medieval times.
Oh, not tobacco. Sugar.
That everything we thought we knew about the world might turn out to be completely wrong.
He would just sit and not really notice that we were there.
Suddenly at 22 months, he started losing his vocabulary. Words that he had used, he just stopped using them.
At the moment, there is no cure for autism.
I wouldn't wish an autistic child on anybody. Bearing in mind that there are many autistic children who lead full and interesting lives and who don't cause the sort of problems a child like Patrick does. But Patrick's quality of life isn't as good as perhaps we'd hope for.
Patrick is 11 years old and attends Giant Steps, a special school for children with autism. The school is based on a Canadian model and offers one-on-one intensive therapies. It was established in 1995 by a group of parents, including Patrick's, who were desperate to find a progressive treatment for their children. Parents will often combine this therapeutic intervention with other treatments, such as special diets or medication to control behaviour.
Okay, now can I trust you to walk down there by yourself? Mummy, get up. Alexander. Mummy's going to come through today.
This is Jo Shepherd and her two children, Oliver and Alexander. Both boys have been diagnosed with autism. Jo and her husband Nick moved to Sydney so their children could attend Stepping Stones, the preschool program of Giant Steps. Stepping Stones provides individual support for each child in the form of an educator, also known as a shadow.
The bears go rolling 3 by 3, hurrah, hurrah. The bears go rolling 3 by 3, the little one stops and rubs his knee, that's right.
Children with autism have trouble organising themselves, difficulty in processing sounds and learning the rules of communication.
Bus to...
Autism is a neurological disorder, and what it seems to do is affect the child's central nervous system. And in doing that, it really upsets their whole body and their whole being, and it also upsets the way that they process information. So it's upsetting their learning as well. So if you're looking for characteristics, I guess there's really 4 or 5 areas that are really affected, and one is definitely communication and language.
Choo-choo, Thomas. Alexander, join Thomas.
Children with autism have poor play skills, so they find that difficult to learn through play, which children without autism naturally do. Another one is relationships to peers or family, building up social relationships with people. They're very, very difficult achievements for people with autism. They react to sensory stimuli in their environment, and that is why they do strange things, or what we perceive to be strange things, like getting very, very overexcited when the fan's switched on, or watching a truck and not being able to take their eyes off it as it moves away. So they react to the environment and the stimuli in it all the time, which can be quite overwhelming for them.
Ooh, Christian music time.
Christian is 4 and recently diagnosed. He has just started at Stepping Stones' early intervention program. He has not yet begun to speak.
Christian is, what can I say about him? He looks like a real little man. He's a toddler, but he looks like a real little man. And it's very difficult to say what Christian's like because it's almost like we don't know a lot about Christian because of that. It's a barrier of types. And Christian is, we know what he likes, we know what he does during the day, but we don't know how he thinks. And I'm actually looking forward to the time where he is able to tell me what he's thinking. 3. That'll give me more of an idea of his personality.
Christian has several traits typical to autism. He finds it difficult to make eye contact and therefore to engage with people.
Oh, Christian, dancing is finished.
Oh, isn't that such a nice couple?
Early intervention, I guess, refers to catching and diagnosing children as early as 2 years and sometimes just below. The advantage of finding out if a child has problems when they're young is obvious. It prepares them for school. It teaches them some basic life skills that they might need. And in our case, when we're dealing with children with autism and early intervention, it's crucial in teaching them how to communicate.
First we want to put
Without early intervention, I think their problems just become compounded and if not, more entrenched.
That's right, stand up. See?
Alexander was 3.5 when he started stepping stones. Oliver was 2.5. That year's difference has made a world of difference. Okay, Oliver had a different starting position. His autistic mannerisms were not so ingrained, even as Alexander's were. But he has developed so much more rapidly than Alexander. Now, if a child has spent 5 years flapping, waving their hands, or tapping sticks, or lining up trains, or doing other behavioural procedures, then it's part of their lifestyle almost. It's their relief. So trying to change that is a major, major issue.
Which will we have first, ratty or bananas? Ratty. Ratty. Okay, put it in.
If you had a child that's 2.5 who's just beginning to work their brain, who's just beginning to develop the links between how they move and how it relates to their body, then of course it's going to be so much easier to work with that child.
Oh, that was a good one.
Children with autism need one-on-one attention. It takes a range of therapies to help them develop the basic skills needed for communication. One of the first steps is sometimes just teaching the child how to ask for help.
Yes, Oliver. A patch? Can I help you put the patch on? I can.
There we go. Now we're only going to use one eye. Here we go. Ready? Sit.
Go.
Oh, it's a bit harder, isn't it? Oh, you got it. One more.
These children find hand-eye coordination difficult. Often their ability to track and focus is not developed.
Are you ready for the tricky ones? Oh, what's this leg doing? Come back again.
Their brain can be confused about which is the left and right side of the body.
Now this arm's
When this
working.
happens, something as
All
simple
down
as
again.
putting food in your mouth can become a challenge.
Let's try the other side.
Go.
Crawling and rolling are things most children learn naturally. But children with autism often miss these vital milestones.
Good boy. Keep pulling.
Developing strength and flexibility in their upper body gives these children physical confidence. This is necessary for the foundation of speech and fine motor skills, like being able to hold a pencil and write.
Arms up. Ready, set, go. Yay. 2, 3, go. Okay, Alexander, let's put it on. What do you want? What do you want? Looking. Christian, tell me.
Each play activity is designed to encourage the children to interact. The therapists use a combination of gestures, symbols, and speech to teach the meaning behind words and the reasons for wanting to communicate.
Yay! Clapping. Number 5.
Are they nearly cooked, Patrick?
Yeah.
It's a little bit more, they're a bit red in the middle. See how they're red?
The aim of all these intensive therapies is to help the children reach their fullest potential and hopefully lead independent lives.
We thought for a long time he was deaf, and we noticed he had a lot of sort of typical autistic traits like spinning and playing with sand, and which he doesn't have anymore. So there was obviously something wrong with him.
There was no specific incident. It happened relatively quickly. Within a few weeks, he went from one type of child into another. I had said to Steve, there's something wrong with Patrick, I don't think he's hearing. And Steve's response was, oh, look, don't worry about it, because I'm the worrier. And I think about a week or so later, I just sat Steve down in a chair and I said, watch this. And Patrick was sitting in front of the television, staring up at it with the others. And I called him, no response. And, I tried a few different things. Clap my hands, no response. You have plans and you have hopes and dreams for the future, and when you suddenly get a diagnosis of something like autism or any other major disability, the baby you had isn't the person that's going to grow up. It is definitely like the child you had has died. Patrick started at giant steps, I think, when he was 6. We've never had dramatic change with Patrick. It takes months and months and years for you to see improvements in Patrick.
Okay, read it with me. Ooh. Lady. La. Beautiful. Great reading.
Patrick is unable to pronounce his words properly. Some people call that dyspraxia. He has trouble with his final consonants, so a lot of what he says is hard to understand for people who aren't used to it. He has trouble with memory recall, so to actually bring down those words that he needs to use, it's hard for him. To construct sentences, virtually impossible, although he's getting a lot better. He can put 3 or 4 words together.
Is. La. Good boy, you'll be fine. Great work. It's finished. That's it.
What do you want? Do you want more to eat? Patrick, look at me. Look at me. Do you want more to eat? Do you want more to eat? What? No roll-ups. No?
Obviously, he vocalises. He uses his hands. He uses some sign language. And he actually makes some up himself.
So he would say, shampoo, and rub his hair so it's shampoo. And understood when I said shampoo, but he wasn't happy with that. So he went and found a book in his room and opened a page and Winnie the Pooh. So that was the particular, package of shampoo that he wanted.
It was really when Alexander was 2, we realised that he wasn't talking as much as we thought he should be. He was talking, but he wasn't joining his words together. So we went back to see his original paediatrician. He was quite concerned and felt that we should have things like hearing tests done, and went and had this assessment at the Chatswood Assessment Centre. And they looked at the way he played and the speech that he used and all sort of thing. And they said to me, yes, he has autism. Not severe autism, but autism, and you definitely need to do something about it. You need to make, major changes to your life. Whereas with Oliver, I had been diarying all his speech use. So from the age of 12 months or whenever he first started speaking, I would write down each month the new vocabulary. And when we came to about 18 months, there were so many new words to be added to the list, and I was coping with Alexander at the same time that I gave up trying to track Oliver's speech development because he was doing so well. And then probably 2-3 months later, a lot of that speech had just gone. And I was on the phone to Chatswood saying, help, like Oliver is crashing, I think was the term I used. And they're like, but we spoke to you 2 weeks ago and you said he was fine. I said, he was fine 2 weeks ago. I'm constantly experimenting on Alexander and Oliver, and it's a scary concept that whilst it's under medical supervision, it really is a case of different doctors and myself sitting down and saying, well, how about we try this, or how about we try that, and researching the effects of different vitamins or different foods. When Alexander first started at Stepping Stones, a guy used to comment to me about how healthy his snack box was. He had ham, cucumber and tomato as his morning tea. And, 6 months later, we found out that that was absolutely the worst things that I could be giving him. These so-called healthy foods. Because, they were high in salicylates was the big trigger with the tomatoes.
So he can eat eggs?
Well, egg yolks are actually a concern. He seems to have a slight allergy. So, in fact, what I've done today is I've got 2 whites and just 1 yolk in there. Otherwise, I used to give him boiled eggs with just the white, but that got really boring and, he got tired of that. Like, sometimes the egg roll I can prepare the night before, but the fried balls are really yucky if I do them the night before, so there's a limit on how much you can actually prepare.
It's Alexander's breakfast. Look how nicely Alexander eats his breakfast. Take note.
Drink of water?
You can have a drink of water, but first have a spoon.
When you change the diet, although the work involved is initially very great, and probably still is very great, the effects on the child, hopefully, are that the child is so much happier, so much healthier, that the workload in fact becomes lighter. Now that was definitely the case with Alexander. With Oliver it's a bit harder to assess it, but at the moment I continue to prepare separate food for both of them. It's a big demand, but the rewards can be great.
Say, come on, Daddy.
Can I pour a cup of tea? Be careful.
No, don't be silly. If I don't get time for a cup of tea, why should you?
Come on, Daddy.
I'm special.
Oh.
All right, let's go upstairs. Come on.
Someone asked me the question, have you accepted it now? And at the time I sort of said, well, yes, I think I have, but, Nick's still struggling with it. But it wasn't that I had accepted it, really. It was just that I was surviving. It's a lifelong struggle. I'm always fighting. I'm always looking for... I'm not looking for a cure. And I'm not looking for a reason. I'm looking for something that's going to help them. Not necessarily cure them, but help them.
I haven't been through a death or a loss of a loved one, so I don't know exactly what it's like. But I did go through a period that must have been like grief. It was a long period when we realised there was something wrong with this child. I felt I didn't really know this child. I hadn't really bonded with him anyway. There wasn't that same interaction that I'd had with my first son. I felt that I was alone. I felt very much like I was the only one in the world that was going through this. And while I was looking after the children's needs, I was meeting all their needs, I really wasn't doing much past that. It was almost like I was immobilised.
There is no one cause of autism. It can be triggered by metabolic complications, such as a viral infection. It can be genetic. It can be caused by a pre- or postnatal brain injury, but it is not preventable or detectable before birth.
You take it. John. Yes.
John's nearly 7 and he's a lovely boy. I can barely find fault with him, which is dreadful. If he hears Christian make a different sound, he'll say, "Oh, I haven't heard Christian make that sound before. Isn't that great?" And he's very, very paternal in a way towards them. It's important to remember he's still a child, and quite often he gets pretty annoyed with them if they've stuffed something up that he's been working on, and I've often heard him from another room yelling out, "You'll pay for this, Christian!" But mainly he's a very patient child and loves his brother and sister. Alexia is, we used to say that she's a very sharp little thing. She just notice everything. And she's busy. She goes around doing her little things during the day, and she's very beautiful. She's got a killer smile. And she's just a lovely little thing. One day she was just beautiful and just developing like a normal child, and then the next, and I can pinpoint it to the week, 1 week in July, when I went in to get her from her room, she'd just woken up and she was calling from me. She was still in her cot, and I walked in and she had her arms outstretched for me, but she wouldn't look at me. And it was very odd, but I had a lot to do and I didn't really think about it. And until the end of the week, when it was becoming it was nagging at me, and I sort of distractedly said to Angelo, "There's something wrong with her, she's just acting funny." And he said, "I noticed that too." And then we both sort of stopped dead in our tracks. We thought, oh no, it's happening again.
Here we are. Put these ones away for me as quick as you can.
In diagnosing autism, doctors look for evidence in several areas. These will include a lack of speech, problems with social interaction, and obsessive or ritualistic behaviour, such as lining up objects.
She does show quite a lot of aloofness, and she very definitely didn't make eye contact with you, and very seldom with anyone else, even with her mother. So I think we really have to score that quite highly. She doesn't use gesture to try to overcome her speech problem, and she doesn't understand others when they're using gestures. I noticed this quite markedly. And then she does have this rather repetitive pattern of using toys. Here we have this lovely little line of little people that she has made for us, or made for herself really. And I'm afraid that all of this does add up to what you were fearing, and that Alexia does have quite a significant degree of autistic disorder. How does that fit in with your own perceptions and what you think?
That's what we expected. Even though it was no surprise, though, I do have to say that it was still very deflating getting that diagnosis, even though I knew what it was anyway. It was very deflating. And along with the deflating diagnosis also came the chat I had with the doctors about what's coming up in treatment in the world of autism. According to the conservative medical establishment, there's really nothing. There's nothing. There's no treatment, and everything that has been touted in the past as looking promising, hopes are fading there as well. So it's not, if you listen to too much of that, you just would lose hope, and that's not really what we need. We need to grab onto something and run with it. Early intervention is the only thing you can do with kids with autism at the moment. No medical treatment is ever suggested.
Patrick's got a good sense of humour, excellent sense of humour, and he can be very mischievous. He can be very nice to be with. He's very loving.
Cole.
I know. I want me to write Coles. Okay.
He was very active when he was a lot younger, and I think it was probably around his 8th birthday he became very violent and a very unhappy child, a very angry, miserable child. And eventually we put him on a drug called risperidone, which changed our lives entirely. Obviously things change again. You might go on for 6 months and then you have to reassess and add more. And since then we have added another drug, Catapress, because he has side effects to the risperidone, so we can't increase that anymore.
No, we'll do this.
We could not cope with Patrick without medication.
Patrick attends a mainstream school part-time. His shadow, Scott, is always with him to offer support.
When I get to 12, you tell me, and we'll take your pill then in 1 hour, okay? Take your pill in an hour. Not now.
Successful integration into a mainstream school is at the core of the Giant Steps philosophy.
Not all the children are finished though, okay?
The children gain so much from interaction with their peers, but integration is not always easy. It's hard for them to sit still quietly, to concentrate, and to direct their attention on demand in a mainstream class.
What the children do. See? Well, other ones can I show you? Alright? So,
Good boy.
Mark and... Alright, James.
Thanks, Pat. Good boy. Out we come. Over to your bag. Where's your drawing book? It's not here today. You can have a drink. No, it's not time. Don't hit me. We're going to have the pill at 12, like we do every day. Don't hit your head. Look at your watch. It's here in front of you. It's on 11. When it gets to 12, you have your pill. Let go. Let go. Thank you. Okay, I'm just going to sit here. You can have some time to yourself. Don't hurt your head. Have a drink.
It's not uncommon for him to go and headbutt a wall, a glass window, and shatter the window. As a parent, it's really horrible. I mean, it's horrible for anyone to see it. It's horrible because you feel so helpless that you can't stop it. You really have to wait for that episode to calm down, and if it doesn't, then you use medication as a last resort to give him a little bit more to calm him down.
Do you want me to squeeze? Pardon?
Yeah.
Okay, one activity inside quietly, without being grumpy, then you can have your peel. Okay?
Head, shoulders, knees and toes, and eyes and ears and mouth and nose. Heads, shoulders, knees and toes. Toes, toes.
Thank you. Time to go to the bathroom to wash your hands.
So what we need to try and do is work out a way that you can use the folder outside in the playground with him. So I might make him a few more symbols, like he needs a look, so he can say, look, I made a sandcastle. And he needs a climbing frame. Communication's vital in terms of trying to overcome some of those social deficits that children with autism have. So communication is like their last port of call. They're not interested in it. They find it really difficult to learn. And to learn some of the basics of communication, like joint attention or imitation, are really important for pre-language skills, and that's very much what we focus on in the Stepping Stones part of the program. Dress-ups or threading? Which one do you want? Good choice. Find Miss Jenny, and you can say,
Miss Jenny, can I hit it?
off you go find her. Where is Miss Jenny?
Yes?
Can I hit threading?
You want threading? Hi.
Hi, Kelly.
Ready to go? Let's go.
The overall goal for this year for Alexander is really successful integration into regular school.
Now close your eyes so you don't see the scary.
At this stage, I don't really consider him to be in primary school to learn academics. The major struggle for Alexander in his life is going to be social issues. If you can't interact with other people, it's a very, lonely life. Making friends is the difficult concept even for any of the kindergarten children, let alone a child with autism who can't communicate on the same level as the others.
Look at me. Grandma or grandpa? Grandpa.
I would ultimately like to see him so that he's able to cope in the integration environment without a full-time shadow. How far down the track that is, I don't know. I mean, as long as he's in Giant Steps, he will have access to a full-time shadow.
Just would be really nice to just have a normal family life. These kids look normal and people expect them to behave normally, but of course they don't. And when children look so utterly normal, the pressures on the child and on you as a parent to present people with a properly behaving child is an enormous one. I mean, if we take them out even to the shopping centre, they all love it. It's just that they will just wander away from us, or actually, literally run away from us, choose to run away from us. So any outings are highly stressful for us. Quite enjoyable for them, but highly stressful for us.
Patrick, what person's stickier?
We've had a couple of very nasty instances where he's disappeared on us. We live very close to a main road, and accidents happen and we forget to lock the door occasionally, or someone might leave the door ajar and he's off, gone. He's run up to the local shops and crossed 6 lanes of traffic at 9 o'clock in the morning, peak hour.
I took him to the office in the city one night, on the 12th floor of a bank. It's got pretty good security. And whilst I was just getting a few things together to take to Melbourne the following morning, and he went out into the dealing room, and I thought, well, he can't get off the floor, and got my things into my briefcase and came out and he was gone. And he'd found his way out of the building and was picked up by a taxi driver walking onto the Western Distributor in the dark. This was like 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. And it was about 40 minutes before I found him.
Turn the light off. Dougie, turn the light off.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear
Chrysula and Angelo live on the outskirts of Sydney. It can take over an hour to drive to Giant Steps. Chrysula does this trip several times a week.
Well, Alexia was finally accepted into Stepping Stones for next year, and she'll be attending Stepping Stones on the same days as Christian. The studies have shown that children with autism need one-on-one. They respond best to one-on-one therapy, and they need many, many hours of it, as much interaction as possible.
Can you get elephant mat?
I think that Stepping Stones has managed to get a lot out of Christian, as much as he's able to give at the moment, and I think they've done that with consistency and structure. I think that's what he's responding to. I would have liked there to have been language by now, but he's obviously not at that point yet. That's a bit disappointing.
No, it's a fish, and he's jumping. Stand up. Splash.
I don't believe that it can be only behavioural therapy that will get him out of autism. It would be nice to think that it would, but it's just very rare that that happens. And we feel that we have to look at medical intervention. Medical intervention is just not happening in this country, so we have to go out. We have to go to the States to get that. About a year ago, I stumbled across a website for Michael Goldberg, who's a paediatrician who works from California. That was the first time I ever came across something that said this disorder was not a mental disorder. It was actually a biological disorder. And Dr. Goldberg feels that a biological disorder is something that can be treated, and it's something that affects the child's immune system, and something is going wrong within the system, and they're getting ill. There are some medications that are being trialled at the moment on adults that he would like to use on children, and he feels that this is the medication that will ultimately help in the treatment and cure of autism. Now, if just Christian will eat this, life will be complete. Come on.
Good.
Look what I'm doing. Good. Okay? 2 hands. Right. Back. Get these ones. Okay, Nick. Sweep some of them up with the broom. What? Stop. Quietly. Okay? All right.
We can all tell if Pat's going to become really sort of unhappy, which means potentially violent, by the tone of his voice. So he'll often whinge a little bit, kind of in a protest, kind of I just don't want to do it. But when it becomes that really high-pitched, distressed whinging where you can see that he really is upset, it's more than just, I don't want to do it. Often that's like a precursor to him becoming violent. There's been a huge reduction in that sort of behaviour this term, and that's mainly, I think, as a result of him learning how to regulate his own behaviour and also being given a bit more autonomy. I'll give him the choice now. Do you want to go and sit in your corner and work there? And he'll say yes. I think he's responding well to that.
Pat, what did you do when you were working? Which one? You did? You got to tell me. Sweep with the look at the word with the broom. Yeah, you did a great job. Well done. You can go buy something from the shop.
Lemonade. What else have you got on your list?
Popcorn.
Popcorn.
See?
Sweets, maybe sweets. I'm not sure about sweets.
When your child's younger, you're still working through that grief process of acceptance and denial. You work so hard, you're desperate to get your child to a level better than they are now. And I think in the early days you just want them to be normal.
Put them in gently so they don't... No.
But I think as Patrick has grown and got older, and we have more of an acceptance of his life and our life, I think you tend to relax more. You're not quite as obsessive, maybe not quite as passionate about it. And it's not giving up, it's really... I think you learn that you can really only improve what you're given. And if your child has a particular makeup, you know, you always want them to get better, but you know that their level of achievement isn't going to be as great as you'd once hoped for.
For every child in Giant Steps and Stepping Stones, there are another 2 on the waiting list. To maintain the school's one-on-one therapy, the parents must raise an additional $1 million each year.
This year we have really struggled to get the sponsorship and the attraction of funds because it's been an Olympic year. So that meant that next year things were looking very dicey. It was a wake-up call to think, okay, we've got to get back out there again. We've got to start redoubling our efforts to get the funds because we don't want to have to see the children being told, I'm sorry, but you know, we can't afford to keep you in the school any longer. Everybody has to do what they can. And for some people, that's selling raffle tickets. For others, it's getting corporate contacts. For others, it might be coming to the working bees or offering time at working in the office. There's 101 different ways.
Can I just take off a second and show the girls something?
You spend so much time working up to the ball that you almost initially first think, oh, yeah, I just want it to be over and done with. But fundraising aside, it is a chance to celebrate the achievements of the kids, celebrate the achievements of the parents. You know, that you've made it through another year. And just say, hey, congratulations. I was so pleased to see the progress that your child was making this year. Or look, hey, I know it's been a really tough year, but I hope next year's better.
What's the bid? 2,000. Yell it out loud. Come on, let's hear it. $2,000. $3,000 on the left.
We made more money this year than the year before. For a school with 42 children to get 900 people to a ball and make $200,000 profits, incredible, really.
$7,500 sold.
It's a fantastic achievement, but if you put it into perspective, it's not enough.
It's about a quarter. It's about a quarter of the fundraising which we do. Most of the other fundraising is in the form of donations from individuals and companies and so on.
Integration's been the highlight of the year for Alexander. It's been hard for him. Sometimes he just walked out of school looking so bedraggled, and because it's such an effort for him to concentrate and listen. But I think the highlight of integration has been to see him making friends, getting to know who all the children were, what their names were, being asked to birthday parties. An enormous achievement for Alexander was like just simply going around to other children's houses to play after school.
Sarah, show me.
Sarah, show me. Good saying, show me, Oliver.
It's Alexander and Daddy on a motorbike.
Oliver has had the most amazing year. I think it's been a number of the pieces falling together, that the speech therapy and the music therapy and all the input that's going in at Giant Steps has finally come together as one piece. I think also the diet, I've got to say, I keep coming back to it, but diet has had an enormous impact on him.
Okay.
The helicopter touched Toy Story.
Okay, let's see if it does. Ready?
What about Toy Story in the play? He lands on
floor, we're from the table. Under the table. Let's have a look. Ready, steady, go! Oh, you're right.
If it can be done with him, it can be done with some of the other children. It's not to say that it's going to work with all the kids. We've seen certainly different progress between Alexander and Oliver, but it's proved to my mind that there is often a metabolic situation that you're dealing with, and you know, there should be more children out there who are getting help. There should be more research done into what can be done to help these kids.
Big hug, sweetheart. Big hug. Mwah. He's doing
so well.
Is he?
It's just fantastic.
Come here. Come here, let's find out how you did today with
He
us.
sang twice. Within...
Did you?
Will you sing with me?
Will you sing with me?
And he did a really
Oh,
it was
good
very
boy.
definite.
It seems inconceivable that something like autism won't be treated successfully at some point, and I like to think it's sooner rather than later. I don't see, it just seems like such a little thing. I mean, how difficult can it be? So,
especially when they're talking about repairing the central nervous system.
Yeah.
And things like that. They're like making blind people see and regrowing limbs or organs.
Exactly. I mean, how big is autism? I mean, surely someone can come up with something for that. It can't be that difficult. I mean, it's probably difficult, but there's so many bright people out there.
Patrick, would you like to do some spelling? Okay, let's come and sit at the desk. That's it, fantastic. What's that say? Can you tell me what it says?
This is fantastic, Pat. Well done.
You've had a good morning. Should we go and have your pill? Ouch.
No!
Yes. Is there a drink in there?
If we look at the future for Patrick, providing he can maintain his current stability in everything, I think he's capable of doing so many things. I mean, hopefully he'll be able to do some sort of paid employment, which will give him satisfaction. Hopefully he'll be able to live in some sort of supported accommodation. I mean, obviously he's welcome with us for as long as he has to be with us, but I think that's part of growing up and being independent, and hopefully to give the rest of the family some future, I guess, of independence ourselves.
Dr. Goldberg is an option that we need to try. We spoke to our paediatrician. We're assured that the treatment won't actually kill them. It won't hurt them. So in the light of that, we're willing to give that a go. This is going to be an expensive exercise. Aside from the travel costs, the medications that we'll be using are actually very expensive, and we have to times that by 2 for the 2 children. The exchange rate's not a great one at the moment. It's probably the worst time to go, but it's still something we feel we have to do for our children.
See you later. Bye. Good luck.
What do you think the future holds for Alexander?
$64,000 question, I don't know. I think Alexander will cope with the IT world very well. He's already computer literate. So his speech is always going to be, or lack of speech is always going to be the biggest challenge that he faces.
It's really hard to envisage what his future will be, and I think that's one of the stresses of dealing with children with autism, is that what will happen to them, and you know, where will they go, what will their life be like in the future.
Who knows whether it's medication, giant steps, integration, all of those things, I'm sure, but think the more satisfied he feels with himself that he can communicate better, he can control his behaviour better, then whatever it is that's inside his brain that caused him to bang his head or get frustrated is being replaced by satisfaction that, I got my message across, or, I did something that, he now rides up to the shop on his bike with James and I, buys a bottle of lemonade and rides back, and you can just see how proud he is just to do that.